What's going on, guys? My name is Valerio and welcome to another tutorial here on our channel, The Guide. Now today's video is one that's going to revisit a bit of the fundamentals of FIFA 20, specifically a how to win video and our top 5 tips to achieve more wins in FIFA 20. Now this is going to be particularly useful if you've only recently picked up FIFA 20 and are looking to really improve your game, but there's definitely some use to it as well for the more experienced player, because at this point in the game cycle sometimes it can be easy to forget your grounds. It can be easy to forget what really works in FIFA 20 specific to this year's game and what makes the difference between winning and losing. Before we get into our top 5 tips to win more games, we did want to let you guys know that we now have new offers available for our one-on-one coaching service that we provide. As usual, you'll be able to select a coach at a level of your choosing and get a tailored experience to pinpoint what you need to work on and how to get where you want to be. So if you're interested and you want to get in on the new prices, definitely check out the link in the description box down below. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So getting into the first and potentially the most important thing to consider if you want to win more games, you'll have to finish whatever chances you can create for yourself. Now, with FIFA releasing a new game every year, the shooting button itself doesn't change, but what does change is what types of shot work and what kind of areas you should try to exploit. FIFA 20 is no different, and in this year's iteration at this stage of the game, looking for the near post with a normal classic power shot is a must and will be the difference between you winning and losing games. Now that doesn't mean that going for a far post shot or a far post finesse isn't an option. It does work, it has its time and place, but talking purely from a winning perspective, going for near post shots will more often than not be more worth your time. As a result, you should always look to push towards the outside and get the angle for the near post shot. That's exactly what we go after in this scenario with our Butragueño. He is actually a very strong player in FIFA 20 because of his 5-star weak foot, meaning that in this situation, our opponent could comfortably see us to try and dribble towards the middle to get a clear view of the goal. That's not what we do though, because in FIFA 20, the near post shot takes precedent over most of these logical things, hence why we turn to face the opposite way that we were initially facing. Then, after a drag back, which is a very common skill move to use in FIFA 20, more info can be found on that in our basic skill moves tutorial in the description box down below. We proceed to dribble towards the outside and set ourselves up for the near post shot. In a way, it is counterintuitive. You'd expect the keeper to be more prepared, but this is just to show you guys how the game rewards these types of angles and situations by giving you very deadly shots in the near post. So for this reason, a lot of FIFA 20 beginners struggle to score as they simply do not know the correct angles to bet their chances on. Being able to direct your players and tell them to come short is a massive part of FIFA 20. Before we get into why, let's go over the commands. To call a player short while you have the ball with one of your players, simply press the R1 or RB button and aim your left stick towards whoever you're trying to tell to come short. Now the reason this is such an important thing to learn is due to 2 factors. A lot of times you might have experienced players making runs in areas that you aren't interested in exploiting. Other times you may see your players too close to the opposing defenders that might intercept a pass if you decided to go for it. In a perfect world, your teammates would give you better support, but since that's not always possible in FIFA 20 with how the attacking AI works, the best thing that you can do to avoid losing the ball and continue your attacks is to call your teammates short. Here, for example, our Butragueño is in a nice position, but you never know. Feeding the pass prematurely could waste this opportunity, and our opponent's defender could have the opportunity to intercept it. What we do want is for our Butragueño to move a bit closer to us so we have the certainty of reaching him with a pass. Thus, we aim towards him, we tap the R1 button, and he does just that. He comes short towards us. As a result, he appears to be in a better position, so we are safely allowed to give him the ball without having to worry about the defender behind him, and we play it out from there to get the easy shot and the goal. One of the most careless ways to concede goals can come from losing possession of the ball around your own box or in your own half. You never want to do that, and you always want to make sure that you exit your box after winning the ball back as cleanly as possible. Otherwise, you will put your team at a massive disadvantage with everyone all over the field and your opponent being able to find opportunities really easily. In FIFA 20, this is a mistake that all kinds of players make, but it's important for any beginner to be aware of it from the get-go to avoid careless mistakes on the road. An easy tip to make sure you avoid this is to focus on exiting the box only via ground passes. That is X on PlayStation and A on Xbox. Now, if you didn't already know, triangle on PlayStation 4 or Y on Xbox is the button for through balls, so you can pass the ball in the space ahead of the receiver. What I'm hinting at can be seen in this example here. After we win the ball back and are on the wing with Zambrotta, we see our player in front of us, and he is seemingly wide open with a fair amount of space ahead of him. The same can be confirmed by the minimap. He is quite alone. As a result, we go with the through ball option because it makes sense to pass the ball into the space ahead of him to speed up the build-up process. In FIFA 20, however, this can backfire quite frequently. The reason is your player can be slow to react, and at the same time, your opponent might get locked onto the same ball and get there before you, despite it being a seemingly obvious and safe choice. So, like I mentioned earlier, your safest bet is to focus on only using the ground pass button in these situations and feed the ball to your player's feet to avoid unnecessary risk, despite how tempting it may be to pass into the space in your own half. The 1-2 is a classic in football, both in real life and in its video game format. In other sports or areas of the world, you might know it as the give and go, but the end result is the same. To perform a 1-2 pass, you'll want to perform a ground pass like you usually would, but all the while holding the L1 or LB button on your controller. What this does is it makes the passer run forwards into space, creating the effect of the classic 1-2 where you return the ball to the runner. It's really useful to use on the wing in situations where you have two players and your opponent is pressing you with one. It's a 2v1 situation in your advantage, and so it's super easy to gain free space and move up the pitch. However, it's also a great way to score goals if your opponent takes the bait. Here, we get our ball to our striker and we pass it back to our midfielder while, of course, holding down the L1 or LB button. As a result, after performing the pass, our striker runs straight ahead before our opponent can get in front of him, and of course we feed him the ball for the easy finish. Finally, something beginners should really keep in mind to win more games is setting up passes correctly. A classic mistake is taking things for granted and making a series of passes without taking into account the ball holder's positioning and where he is facing. At the most basic level, this means that as a player, you should try to make an effort to position yourself where you're more or less facing who you want to pass. If you try to do a 180-degree pass, it'll only work if you're absolutely by yourself in a secluded area of the pitch. Even if you get away with it, there's no reason to build this bad habit. It will only slow you down as the pace of the pass tends to be very poor in these types of conditions. When you actually make an effort to pass within the line of sight of your player, the time you spent turning will be worth it as moving the ball will happen much faster. Taking this concept to the next level, there are certain things that you can do as a player to position yourself better at a better passing angle other than just using your analog stick to dribble. Here, for example, we have the ball with Pirlo and our target is in a ton of space down below. To increase our chance of a clean pass through the middle, we need to quickly change the angle our player is facing, and a good way to do this is to use the ball roll. The ball roll is a very effective basic skill move in FIFA 20, and it is also one in which we cover in our basic skill moves tutorial that I mentioned earlier on in the video. After we perform the ball roll, we feel comfortable enough to pass, and we find our teammate down below without any issues. Another tool to do the same thing is the drag back, and in this play we find ourselves with Baggio on the ball and we see a teammate of ours make an interesting cutting run into the box. Unfortunately, the timing in relation to where we're facing at that moment is not ideal, but we can easily fix that by performing a drag back and exiting at a 90-degree angle. Again, for more on the drag back, everything can be found in our basic skill moves tutorial. As we play out the rest of the sequence, we find the angle for that pass into Pirlo, and it becomes a key moment in our build up to the goal. When you're new to FIFA and FIFA 20 in particular, one of the biggest hurdles for beginners is understanding what they need to be doing to increase their win percentages. It can be very tempting to try and emulate the best players around the world from the get-go and learning the fancy tricks that they use to win the games. The problem with that though is that at a beginner's level, you're skipping the fundamentals. When you start out, you will be able to win so many more games when you iron out these basic principles that we talked about today that are especially important in FIFA 20 because of how FIFA 20 works. Once you've mastered and limited the mistakes in these areas, you'll make yourself that much harder to beat, and you'll really truly notice the most improvement at first. After all, in the long run, what will really give you more wins is ironing out your own inefficiencies. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today. I hope this was useful, and if it was, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. We also want to thank our elite supporters over on Patreon, and if you're interested, you can become a patron today to support the channel as well as receive cool benefits in return over at patreon.com/BPG The Guide.